Okay, sorry about that, guys. Back to chapter 7. At this altitude, you wouldn't see much anyway, spoke up George, seated beside her cousin. We're flying pretty high. Nancy's seatmate was a beautiful young woman who had slept most of the time. She awoke as luncheon was served on trays fastened into the armrests. After lunch, she chatted with the girls. Learning that they were on their way to Honolulu, she asked, "Are you stopping over at Los Angeles?" "Yes, we are," Nancy replied. "For several hours, in fact. We're taking the night plane across the Pacific." "If you have no plans," said the young woman, who had introduced herself as Sue Rossiter, "I have a suggestion of something interesting you might do. Watch a movie being filmed. First, I should tell you that I'm an actress. The Bramley studio where I work is about to start filming a picture. It's a fantasy. I play the lead, a mermaid of Waikiki Beach." "What an interesting part," remarked Nancy. Sue Rossiter went on to say that the interior scenes for the picture would be made in the studio, but the outdoor scenes, she added, are actually going to be shot at Waikiki. To Nancy's disappointment, she learned that the movie company would not make the Hawaiian trip for some time. By then, the visitors from River Heights probably would have left the islands. But the actress said, "Why don't you come to the studio? I'll see that you have passes." "We'd love to," said Nancy. She glanced intensely at her seatmate for a moment, and then added, "Isn't your stage name Fran Johnson?" The young woman laughed and nodded. "I'll be expecting you at the studio." When the plane reached Los Angeles, the actress was met by a young man driven off at once. After Hannah Gruen and the three girls had checked their baggage on the Honolulu plane, Nancy wired Ned to inform him which flight they were taking. Then the four took a taxi to the Bramley studio. They had not gone far on the boulevard when Bess, looking out the rear window, insisted that they were being followed. "How can you tell in this heavy traffic?" George chided her cousin from the front seat. Nancy had already glanced back too. "Bess could be right," she said, and leaned forward to tell the driver their suspicions. "Would it be possible for you to throw the car behind us off of our tail?" she asked. "Why, sure, miss," the driver replied, with a broad grin. He added, "We've got to protect our visitors." The taximan had no trouble in eluding the car. He took a circuitous route, but finally pulled up in front of the Bramley studio. Fran Johnson was waiting for them at the door. "Hurry," she urged. "The author of the script is going to explain a legend in it to a group of company executives. I think you'll find it interesting." She led the way into a small auditorium, motioned the girls to seats, and then left them. A young man standing before a seated group was saying, "How much is fact and how much is legend we do not know. But it is said that the first inhabitants of the Hawaiian Islands were Polynesians who came from other Pacific islands, particular Tahiti. They landed from enormous outrigger canoes. Their favorite landing spot was Waikiki Beach. They preferred to come in on the surf in their shallow canoes rather than land in calmer waters. That is why we have chosen this beach for our story. It takes place about 1,000 years ago, and now, ladies and gentlemen, suppose we proceed directly with the rehearsal." Nancy and her friends followed the others through the building to a large sound stage. Warning signs for absolute silence were posted in several places. Great ceiling lights, manipulated by men on high platforms, flooded the scene. Cameramen seated on small trucks carrying their equipment dollied back and forth for proper shots. Nancy, Bess, George, and Hannah took seats in a row behind the chairs where the director, the author, and two executives had sat down. The first scene to be shot was laid just outside an ancient thatched-roofed hut. A young Polynesian actor stepped from the doorway and listened intently. "The strange sound on the water again," he said softly. At that moment, the great light focused directly on him and went out, and someone called, "Cut!" While waiting for the light to be repaired, the young actor walked over toward the director. Fran Johnson approached Nancy and was just about to speak when their attention was diverted to a great boom carrying a workman. Apparently, he was an electrician. The boom swung toward the light, which had gone out. As everyone looked upward, the heavy steel arm suddenly hit another huge light. There was a resounding crash, and a shower of glass came down toward those below. That's the end of Chapter 7. See you in a few minutes for Chapter 8.